Well, here we go again. When the Epic Games Store was first announced, there was a sense of excitement from both developers and consumers. The vast majority seemed to agree that it was about time Steam faced some real competition, and that Valve was given a reason to get off their asses and be more proactive about their platform's more problematic aspects. Everyone loves that Epic is offering a bigger cut of sales to developers, particularly for indie developers, and consumers love the idea of getting free games every month. Initially, Epic Games Store seemed to be solely focused on drawing people in through incentives, but optics quickly took a turn for the worse when the priority became restrictions. I'm of course referring to the timed year-long exclusivity of third-party titles that forces PC players to use what is currently an inferior launcher. The most recent game to announce that it signed an exclusivity deal with Epic is the highly anticipated The Outer Worlds. In a tweet from today, March 20th, 2019, the folks over at Obsidian made the following announcement. Our partners at Epic Games have announced that The Outer Worlds will be coming to the Epic Games Store at launch, alongside the Windows Store. It will be released on other digital platforms 12 months later. The Outer Worlds will release on Xbox and PS4 on launch. The community reaction has been about what you'd expect in this day and age from this. One gander at the tweet's responses will reveal how disheartening this announcement was for PC gamers who are really looking forward to Obsidian's Fallout-inspired first-person shooter role-playing game. This is truly unfortunate, especially given that right up until this moment, press surrounding Outer Worlds has been nothing but positive. After the utter disaster that was Fallout 76, and after Fallout 4 was met with middling reception from fans of the series, gamers clamored for a game that could give them a true old-school Fallout experience, and Outer Worlds looks to have the potential to be that game. In fact, Obsidian has made it known that their goal with Outer Worlds is to harken back to old-school Fallout, to give fans of that experience something to look forward to. They haven't really been subtle about their source of inspiration, both in their marketing material and in what they've said during interviews. Speaking to Game Informer, they said this: Bethesda's looking to take the Fallout brand in a different direction. There's nothing right or wrong about that. That's their choice. They own it, they get to do what they want with it. But in our mind, there are people that enjoy where Fallout was. That is what we wanted to do with the Outer Worlds, to give people that. And you know what? Maybe that's a bad decision from the standpoint of the number of people that will buy it. I don't know, people seem to really enjoy what Fallout New Vegas was, so let's give them an experience that's as similar as we can to that. That right there was music to my ears and to the ears of gaming enthusiasts and Fallout fans. But their latest tweet announcing an Epic Store exclusivity deal, not so much, especially given that when Outer Worlds was first unveiled, it was marketed for a Steam release. If you go back to the announcement trailer and skip to the title screen at the end, you can see right here that the logos for PS4, Xbox One, and Steam are prominently featured. These sudden switcheroos is something that a lot of people have been taking umbrage with. Most prominently, it happened with Metro Exodus, after being marketed to launch on Steam and having sold pre-orders on Steam for months on end. The game pulled the rug from under consumers by announcing Epic Store exclusivity a mere 3 weeks before launch. In all fairness to the developers, this was mainly a decision by publisher Koch Media that was entirely out of their control, but it was still not an ideal situation for PC players who prefer the Steam ecosystem. A few days ago, the XCOM spiritual successor Phoenix Point announced that they had signed a year-long exclusivity with Epic, despite having crowdfunded the game around the promise that the game would launch on Steam. Understandably, the backers who made this game possible in the first place through their contributions felt betrayed by Snapshot Games' decision to sideline their very first customers once their support became less pivotal to Phoenix Point's viability. The good news is that the cash infusion from the Epic Store will, according to the developers, contribute to a better game that can be supported long-term with additional content while mitigating financial risks on the developer's part. But many backers were still peeved at the way plans were pivoted so abruptly, desiring the game on the platform that was originally promised. Now, with Phoenix Point, at least I get that Snapshot Games is in the precarious position of being a self-published, independent game development studio that could really use the money. But the thing about Outer Worlds is that the game is already supported by a major publisher, 2K's private division publishing label, whose goal is to fund indie games developed by small and mid-sized studios. As a result, I imagine that Outer Worlds has already got significant financial standing, so in this case, I can't imagine that the cash infusion from the deal with Epic was an absolute necessity. Then again, it's worth keeping in mind that it's not just Outer Worlds that signed an exclusivity deal with Epic. During their GDC 2019 keynote, it was announced that Epic had partnered with Private Division as a whole to bring games exclusively on the Epic Store, hence why Private Division's other game, Ancestors: The Humankind Odyssey, will also be an Epic Store exclusive for 1 year. So yeah, from the looks of it, it doesn't seem like it was necessarily up to Obsidian to decide whether to sign the exclusivity deal or not. I'd imagine it might have been 2K's decision to sign Private Division's current games away to Epic, and Obsidian had no choice but to bring Outer Worlds along for the ride, though this is purely my own speculation. It was also announced during GDC 2019 that Max Payne and Quantum Break developer Remedy will be bringing their next game, Control, exclusively to Epic Games Store. And on top of that, Ubisoft, which recently released Division 2 exclusively on Epic and Uplay, has apparently remained committed to releasing its future unannounced games on Epic as well. Furthermore, a few other noteworthy titles like After Party, The Sinking City, and Industries of Titan have also been confirmed for Epic exclusivity. Despite all the backlash, it would seem as though Epic is moving full steam ahead with their business model of paying off developers to keep their games away from Steam. And here's the thing, it doesn't look like backlash surrounding the Epic Store is fatally hindering game sales. Epic announced today that launch-aligned Metro Exodus sold 2.5 times better on Epic Store than Metro Last Light did on Steam back in 2013. On one hand, I would hardly call this a good comparison, given that PC gaming has grown significantly since 2013, and given the Metro franchise has garnered a bigger following over the years. Metro Exodus selling more copies than Metro Last Light is as natural as Witcher 3 selling more copies than Witcher 2. On the other hand, Metro Exodus sales were still pretty damn good, and while I do wonder how many copies the game would have sold had it released on all PC platforms including Steam, Epic exclusivity certainly didn't kill the game on arrival, and the publisher and developers got a bigger cut of their sales to boot. From the looks of it, Epic's strategy is working, and as long as it keeps working, they'll keep buying out timed exclusivity rights. Perhaps this would all be more tolerable for consumers if Epic Store had launched in a more feature-complete state, but as it currently stands, it doesn't come close to standing toe-to-toe with Steam. That will probably change 6 months or a year down the line, especially if Epic adheres to their roadmap, but until then, until Epic feels as good if not better than Steam, many feel as though Epic shouldn't be forcing PC gamers to use their inferior storefront and launcher at this point. Users have also been concerned about Epic Store's privacy policy and the way the company handles consumer data. I've already discussed on numerous occasions how some find the language in Epic's privacy policy questionable given it may not comply with the GDPR, how there's some suspicion surrounding the fact that Chinese company Tencent owns 40% of the company, and how Epic accounts have been hacked en masse on a few occasions. But most recently, it was discovered that the Epic Games Store was poking around where it shouldn't. People found that the launcher was accessing Steam files like Steam Cloud saves and a file called localconfig.vdf that contained Steam friends and their name history, seemingly as part of a functionality to allow users to import Steam friends. Epic CEO Tim Sweeney conceded that the localconfig.vdf file shouldn't be accessed until after a user chooses to import their Steam friends, and explained that this was a remnant left over from their rush to implement social features in the early days of Fortnite, assuring that they'd fix this now that the issue has come to the forefront. He also explained that they don't use the Steam API because they wish to minimize third-party libraries for security and privacy reasons. but many users found that to be a rather weak justification for employing strange workarounds that access files without permission rather than using official APIs and methods. Even Valve was keen on emphasizing that local Steam files are meant to be private and should not be used or uploaded by third-party services. Over the past few months, Epic has essentially cultivated the perfect storm of factors that's made users admonish their new store. It lacks key features, there are questionable aspects to customer data security, and it's competing with Steam not by offering a more desirable service, but by artificially restricting consumer choice, dividing the PC gaming community along the way. Publishers and developers are complicit in this too. They are the ones agreeing to exclusivity deals despite the inconvenience that may bring to consumers. Again, I understand the appeal of getting a bigger revenue share from units sold and from getting a generous infusion of cash, especially if we're talking about an independent, self-published developer who actually needs the money, rather than major publishers like Ubisoft and 2K who are signing exclusivity deals just to pocket extra cash rather than out of sheer necessity. But so long as Epic's launcher continues to be in such an underdeveloped state, so long as the negative optics surrounding consumer data protection remain unaddressed, and so long as Epic continues to lock down titles that they had no hand developing, participating developers, publishers, and games will face some backlash, which established IPs might be able to weather to some extent, but could prove detrimental to new IPs like Outer Worlds, whose success is riding on initial positive word of mouth. Now, you could buy Outer Worlds on the Microsoft Store as an alternative if you're dead set on boycotting Epic Game Store and really want to play this game on day one. And it was mentioned during GDC 2019 that Epic Store exclusives will also be purchasable on the Humble Store as another option. Epic is clearly providing wiggle room when it comes to platforms other than Steam, from Microsoft Store, Humble Store to Uplay, which only makes sense from a business standpoint given that Steam is their main competitor. However, most PC players out there are Steam users and have become quite comfortable with that platform, and when competition comes at the intentional inconvenience of consumers rather than in the form of unique benefits, when your competitive strategy is to try to yank Steam users away rather than make them switch sides of their own volition, you're going to get hostile reactions like these. Anyway, there you have it, folks, yet another instance of a highly anticipated title facing negative PR after being confined to a service that's undesired by many in its current state. I'd love to hear what your take is on the Outer Worlds becoming an Epic Store exclusive. Will you be buying the game on day one? Will you be waiting until it releases on Steam a year later? Or will you skip it altogether? Let us know in the comments below. With that, I would like to end this news update and discussion video. Thank you for tuning in. To be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Yong Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Yong out.